Welcome, everybody. Jim Benton, CEO of Chorus. I'm here with Latane Conant, Chief Market Officer of 6 Cents for the weekly briefing. Latane, how are you feeling today?
I'm awesome, Jim.
I like
Thanks
that.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So you're in the Midwest. Are we starting to get into the winter?
We are having an awesome week, actually. It was 70 degrees last night. So we got this solo stove fire pit, which if you take anything away from this podcast, it's the solo stove fire pit is amazing. It's smokeless. It will change your life.
I'm not sure how that's possible, but okay, that's great.
So we had a fire last night and, everything's good.
Those are like getting heat lamps and outdoor fire pits right now are very difficult task to get.
Yes.
Well, good. I'm glad you're keeping warm. It's warmer where you are than out here in the Bay Area. It's starting to cool down. But excited to get into the dialogue of really talking about account-based marketing. And I know you've got an awesome book and I wanted to kind of talk about that. But two questions for you. One is, notice that you are Chief Market Officer, not Chief Marketing Officer. I just want to get your take on how you think about the market, the marketing, and how do you distinguish that?
So one of the chapters in the book talks about CMOs playing offense. And I always talk about the best defense is an offense. And I think that when you are not on offense and you don't understand your market and you're not being very proactive about kind of driving the plan and shaping the market, then you get what I call a lot of donkey ball ideas, which don't work. And I think what's happened, and one of the things we talk about, we do a retreat with about 150 B2B women CMOs. I was talking to you about it earlier. Yeah. One of the things over the past 3 years we've talked a lot about is the role of the CMO. And it can be quite tactical or it can be highly strategic. And it's really up to you as the CMO to choose. And I think one of the things that makes it tactical is when you focus on the ing. So you don't call your CFO the Chief Financing Officer. And he doesn't talk about how he closed the books in, record time, right? You talk to him about your finance strategy and how you're going to finance the business. And so why are we showing up as a marketing officer talking about all of our activities? We should be showing up with some authority on here's the market that we're in. Here's why we're in this market. Here's our next horizon of growth and where we need to think about our market. And then how do we overall shape the market with our brand, our experience, and ultimately drive revenue? So it's kind of, to me, the tip of the spear and, something I hope other CMOs will embrace, not just changing their title, but embrace the notion of, hey, you're the seat of the table that speaks to the market. And I think that will help us stay in our jobs longer.
That's right. 10 years a little short in those roles.
Yes, but also create a lot more value for you as a CEO. I mean, that's what you're worried about, right? And so you need a partner to help you understand the market and marry a strategy to go address that market.
Totally. I'm glad they don't call sales VP of selling. So I'm with you on that. And I think that the market is everything, where we spend our time. And we'll get into this. One other question. As I was reading the book, there was a moment about this initiative called Bold Moves. Mm-hmm. And I just want to get a quick, in the moment, what was that aha moment? Where were you? Paint the picture when you said, all right, we're doing this thing.
Well, so it kind of came out of a moment of weakness and insecurity. And, I think I probably tend to be my own worst enemy. I'm one of those people. And I just didn't think I was doing a very good job at 6 Cents. I didn't feel like I knew all the little tools on Scott Brinkler's list. And and I just felt like I had entered into this insanity. And my husband was like, you got to play to your strengths. And I'm crying. I'm like, I have no strengths.
We've all been there.
And I was went on a run, a couple spin classes, and I'm like, okay, I've come this far. And I reflected back on what I think has been a strength, which is, understanding customer and employee experiences and really focused on the experiences that you deliver and differentiating with experience. I mean, that's what I spent, almost a decade at Aperio doing. And so I was like, I know how to do that. And then all of a sudden I had this, click moment, like, wow, we are delivering a pretty terrible experience across, the marketing ecosystem.
Yeah.
I need to, put my big girl pants on. I'm the CMO of 6 Sense. I've got all this great data. Like, it's time to change the game. And so I had my own aha, and I kind of waited to drop the bomb on the team. That was a whole different moment.
Yeah. Love it.
That was interesting. We had celebrated one of the team members' birthdays the night before.
Okay.
So
That's good. You get everyone's loosened up a little bit.
Yeah. I thought that would play to my favor, but everyone was like pretty hungover. And so a big contingency just wanted more coffee and bacon. One person cried. But
it's easy. But Latane, what's awesome about those stories is that for all of us, we know those moments of where you're hitting some wall, just something, and we're all there. We're all there quite often. And then the brilliance that comes from them and some of the greatest moments of just change when you have that awareness. I love it. I appreciate you sharing it, because it's where a lot of the magic comes from, these high highs and low lows that can be separated by literally days.
Yeah. And I think, people who have worked with me are somewhat used to, I would rather do a few big things really, really awesome. And I call them mind-blowing moments. And I live for those. Those are like my crack. Then just grind out another webinar or another ebook or blog. And so that's just kind of my philosophy on life. Go big or go home.
Well, let's jump in then. I want to get your perspective on this data, because I love the fresh attitude, which I think is something we've all been talking about. And maybe just getting in, Latane, your perspective of kind of this fresh marketing take. When we look at data across all of Chorus, what we find today is that the average rep is only able to typically work 13 to 14 accounts. And work means actively engaging, having the calls. It's not just an email sequence. But that's what we see. And you can see that even since February, it's only increased. So people are maintaining high levels of productivity. It also suggests we really need to be focused on, working the right accounts. And one other data point here is that about 50% of all companies would look at, 10 to 15 accounts is the median number of accounts that reps are working. And so what are your thoughts on how do we make sure our reps are working on the right accounts here?
So I think it's so interesting. And maybe one of the reasons why sales and marketing sometimes don't always align is, and I'm a recovering saleswoman. So one of the things that you learn as a seller is that the only asset you have is your time. You have nothing else but your time. And I know that sometimes, marketers will be like, they're lazy, they're not working every MQL and blah, blah, blah. No, they're being choosy.
Yeah.
And that is their job, is to qualify and be choosy. And so you best, as a marketer, if you want to drive revenue, ultimately, your job is to help protect sellers' time and make sure that you are giving them the absolute best things to work, and less is more. And so I love to, we actually created a calculator because it was sort of hard for us to get marketers, and I get it, right? Like, we want to chart, like, I want to go into the boardroom with the up and to the right. I got more stuff, I did more stuff. I got more stuff. And if you change to account-based, and specifically these models that I talk about a lot in the book, this notion of a qualified account, you're probably going to have less that you're putting into the top of the funnel. And that feels uncomfortable at first. And so what we like to do is help people look at the cohort analysis. And what I like to coach marketers to think about is something called your sales velocity formula. Okay.
Okay.
And so what you want to look at is various cohorts, what's coming in to the funnel. And what you're looking for is conversions. And you're looking for ASPs, and you're looking for cycle time. If you optimize for that, you will make your company a lot of money. If you optimize for just putting more into the top, people will run around ragged. You'll have a high CAC, and probably not the revenue you need.
What's the conversion that you're referring to specifically?
So there's about 7 or so that I look at. If you just wanted to clear them all out and look at win rate, you could do that. I have a process called Finding the Red, where I look at each of these on a monthly. I have a dashboard. Bananas. That my whole team is looking at all the time. And we are looking at all of these conversions. Are they red, yellow, green? I love colors. And we're looking at our ASP, and we're looking at our cycle time, red, yellow, green. And then we're sorting by segment. Hey, commercial segment's going to operate differently. We're going to have different assumptions versus a mid-market versus an enterprise. But I actually pulled together Mark, who's our head of sales, and Sanjay, who's our head of customer success, and we make assumptions for how we're going to drive revenue. What are these conversions going to be? And if you're off by a point or two, that is the job of the chief market officer, is to know that and go and try to get, run campaigns or get people together to go and address that. I actually had a funny call with someone who worked for me before and is now a CMO. And he's like, dude, why do I have to do everyone else's job? I don't understand. He's like, it's so annoying. Like, I'm getting all these leads. Can't everyone do? And I'm like, no, dude, your job. You are scrubbing bubbles. You know the commercial, the bubbles that go and shine everything up? I'm like, literally, that's your freaking job. It's to go shine things up, apply, revenue and resources, or dollars and resources across that whole life cycle to keep things green. And so I'm like, so stop bitching. That's what the gig is, and no one thanks you for it.
Life is a lot easier when the leads are coming in, the right leads are coming in, and the sales team is busy, and it just, everything goes forward in that way.
But I want to quickly define, because I didn't do this, I want to quickly define what I think the right quote unquote lead is. Because I'm pretty prescriptive about a qualified account, not a lead. So the problem with the lead is it's one contact. And we know one person doesn't buy, multiple people buy. And I think you've got some data on this too. Yeah. So that's the problem with the lead. And the other thing is, as more people are engaged with you, it's actually a lot less random there's something there. Yep. And if you're on like a typical MQL model, a lot of times you disqualify the second lead that comes in, when it's like, no, that's like that. There's more smoke. That's a good indication. So, what we want to look at is this qualified account. And there's 4 kind of critical things that I use big data and AI to help put my sellers in the best position to win. One is fit. So, and it's funny because I get some slack on this. Like, hey, we noticed that people aren't as aware of you, not in your ICP. And I'm like, I'm cool with that, actually. So laser focused on fit. Can we sell to this account? Can we make this account successful? Do they have the right tech fit? Are they going to be a commercially viable, like, can they spend what they need to spend? So account fit is hugely important. And you want to always you don't want a list of accounts.
Yep.
What you want is criteria, and then something that's always on, finding accounts that meet that criteria. So that's important, because you probably don't have all the accounts in your CRM that are in your ICP.
On that fit, how do you think through, you're right, putting the CEO title on, investor fit and recruiting fit, and sort of the awareness that you create on the wider market?
What was that?
How do you think about from the awareness standpoint, the other sides of the house of sort of recruiting the talent and getting new rounds of funding, that awareness that sometimes it goes beyond the ICP, and sort of, is that what you're talking about, where you get some flack on the fit, where you're so focused on the ICP that other groups maybe don't have that awareness?
Potentially. But I think it goes back to understanding your market, understanding your brand, and building a brand. I do a lot to build our brand. I work a lot with analysts. I think analysts are critical. I work a lot with influencers. I do a lot around our customers in a community. I have a CMO coffee talk that religiously I plan for and prep for and run, 2 calls every Friday, and follow-ups and recruiting. So there's a lot of it's, again, I said it's market, it's brand, it's experience, and revenue. And so I'm not saying you don't do those things, but if I'm going to be applying all that energy, I need it to fall on someone who can actually buy from us and be a good account. And that's not to say, if we're in a fundraising round, maybe I do some campaigns geared toward, I can build a segment and identify the investors. And it's just a matter of, I want to be pointing where I want to point versus just sort of running around hoping.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I totally get that. And I think that's the focus that drives the right numbers, and that's how you get the up and to the right. I wanted to also get your take on the BDR function, and just, I know that you have a lot of thoughts on that. I think you've been a BDR for a day, as you mentioned to me. But as we look at what's going on today out in the market on the data here, when we think about connecting with prospects, what we're seeing is that, the connect rates are down. We're leaving voicemails, but what's different? How do you think the BDR function has changed with everybody in a work from home environment?
So this data makes me feel really good because our numbers are different, because I think we have taken a pretty different approach. And it does all come back to data and insights, and this notion of a 6 QA, or a qualified account. And, I talked about fit. The second kind of critical thing that goes into a qualified account is the personas that are engaging. I love interns, but they're probably not going to buy my software. That's not going to drive, that's not a good fit, right? So you want to model looking at who's typically involved in a buying decision that closes, and are they the ones engaging? And that helps decide, is this account ready? And then looking at behavior. And behavior is not just your judgment on, they're on my pricing page, I'm going to give them 5 points, or they downloaded an ebook because they just really wanted that. Behavior is looking anonymous to known, recency, frequency across that buying team, and looking for behaviors. And then being able to plot, based on all of those things, where that account is in their journey. So that's all well and good.
Yep.
And to be honest, Jim, when we've had that data for a long time at 6 Sense. And if you look at, there's a lot of studies on intent, part of it is mixing intent data in with first party data. But the biggest challenge with intent data is actually doing something with it and operationalizing it. It's not having it. You can go and buy tons of data. And that's what I found when I sat in that seat for a day is I had all kinds of data. I had a lot of opinions. I had a lot of AEs giving me good ideas. I could send sendosos. I mean, I had like a Disney World of stuff that I could go and do. And I'm sitting here and, I'm a CMO. I know our persona and I didn't know what the hell to do first.
Overwhelming.
And third. So it's boiling all of that down again. And we boil it down into this notion of a 6QA, which actually gets treated the same way a hot inbound would.
Okay.
So you take all the data in, you rationalize it down to one thing, not go here for G2, go here, one thing.
Yep.
And I wake up every day and I have my list of the newest accounts that are 6QA that I should go and hit. It's time stamped. So I can then go and inspect and say, hey, how come there's like 20 accounts that have been in 6QA for 60 days? Yeah, what's going on? Like we've decided those are gold. We know those convert, 20 times better than anything else or 75% better than anything else. And so it's basically having a very prescriptive list. But then you need to do more. And I think this is what we were riffing on earlier. Like if I am, typically if you think about the BDR function, it is people younger in their career trying to call on an executive and have a decent conversation. Like, whoa, what are they going to actually do?
Yeah.
And so not only is it what accounts to work, but it's defining exactly how to work an account and what good looks like. And so for us, I am cuckoo bananas about the keyword. If I know Chorus is in market and Jim's top keyword is predictive analytics, why would I talk to him about anything else? Let's put that in the subject line. And then we create these things called a value card, which actually says if he is the head of sales and he's researching predictive analytics, he probably cares about she cares about forecasting accuracy, right? If it's marketing ops, they probably care about lead conversion. So it's sort of like decoding. It's like the Renaissance stone or whatever, the Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone, yeah.
Yeah, of like, if they're if this is their keyword and this is their persona, this is probably what's going on in their pain. And then creating like an ecosystem of content and videos and assets for them to use to provide help to that person.
And Latane, where do you put the BDRs? Do they report into marketing in this motion, or do they report into sales?
They report into marketing for us. I think it probably could go either way. The decision for us was just we were creating a lot of the content and we really embraced this keyword strategy and wanted them very trained up on this keyword strategy and wanted to make sure that the cadence is tied to the keywords and we're kept up to date. And we have sort of this living, breathing persona map with that intent data. And so as intent keywords are moving and changing, that's our view of the market, and we're going to be moving and changing our messaging and our content and our enablement of the team.
It's brilliant. I love that approach. I wanted to maybe take it one step further on the first meetings that we were riffing on earlier, Latane, about how we're seeing that it's taking more meetings to win a deal, and we're also spending a lot more meetings when we're losing deals. And I was curious how you're thinking about, you were sharing earlier some new thoughts on the first meeting.
So we definitely saw, I don't know, we saw something similar playing out, I guess I would say. And hey, pre-COVID, post-COVID, I think most sellers would agree that like your biggest competition is do nothing always.
Yeah.
But what we saw more specifically to COVID, especially in the early days, was, a lot of interest, a lot of of meetings and a lot of first calls. And I think the combination, I think a couple things kind of came together for us. One, we were growing, so we have a lot of new sellers that we're bringing on all the time. When you double, like you think about all the new talent that you're bringing in. We had field kickoff where we started down this huge redo of our sales content. And the theme was about the journey to account-based and predictable pipeline. And obviously with COVID, that sounded insane. Like no one wants a journey. And it's like the most unpredictable thing that's ever happened to us. So we had to really this is every marketer's and seller's story, right? So we're going through a lot of that. And so what we just found was like, when we looked at our red and we found our red, I found, and with our head of sales, we found, gosh, we're not converting. Like we have a target for what needs to convert from our first meetings. And it's not where it needs to be. Now our win rates went up, which is great because I would actually rather, if any conversion's going to go, like I'd rather that one go up than this one. However, you do want to make sure you're not like opportunities aren't falling on the floor. So we started to inspect our first meetings. We started to inspect the follow-up coming out of the first meetings. And lo and behold, we found, hey, we can deliver a better experience. We need to deliver a better experience. And, if you think about, we have always been a team that's been very in the flow with our customers and prospects. So a lot of travel, a lot of being on site. We've always really encouraged that. And so as a rep, you've got the time walking into the meeting and getting set up, right? Hey, this is what I was planning on covering. Is that cool? La, 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 right?
Totally. The lobby,
right? You see in the meeting if they're like, or if they're like really digging it, right? And so there's all these cues that as a seller are now like taken away. So we just found we had to, I call it beast mode. We had to go into beast mode. And we spun up a project. Our head of sales is like very proper. And so he called it Project Meeting Excellence. I called it Project Panic.
Excellence sounds great.
Same project. And we use technology, honestly. Like a big part of it was technology, was data. We found that we wanted to do a pre-meeting survey.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, not everyone's going to fill it out, but that's okay. Like, the ones that do. We found that we needed to do a lot better job in the meeting pivoting. And so we partnered with a company who, Mediafly, to actually atomize all of our content. So we took all of our content, we atomized it, we made it very easy for reps to, in the meeting, pivot, like, oh, so you're like, because what we found is they would do discovery, and then the flow of the first meeting was all the same. So it's like, you got to do the discovery, and then that's got to lead to something. That's why someone will continue to allow you to do discoveries, because they feel like
it's got to be authentic. You got to act on it.
Yeah, you got to act on it. And so, we kind of came out with this whole new, like, hey, let's let our prospects choose their own adventure in the meeting. Mm-hmm. Let's have forks in the road in our discovery. Let's be a lot more pointed with our demos. And then, it's all about the follow-up. So we want data on follow-up. We want follow-up within 4 hours. We want a personalized content stream for the person in the meeting, but also the people that weren't in the meeting that we know need to be in the decision.
Yep.
Hey, feel free to send this on to others. Like, that's the kind of activity we want to be able to see. And then we want to make sure that in after 15 days of having a meeting, we have at least 4 to 5 well-orchestrated follow-ups. So
I'm curious, you mentioned the first meeting conversions were down. What would you recommend to people in the industry? What's a good conversion coming out of a first meeting?
So I'll tell you ours. I will say, like, I love serious decisions and stuff, but I have always found the only benchmarks that are relevant in marketing to some degree are like spend benchmarks. But even those, you need to be very, like, make sure that the cohort of the benchmarks are somewhat applicable. So I always benchmark against myself. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there. To me, the best benchmarks are, and make sure that you don't have a revenue operations person that wants to change how you measure stuff all the time. Corey knows. Corey, if you're out there, that drives me crazy. F's me all up. Yeah. But so I always find that to be the best. But for us, it's about 57%.
Oh, wow. It's high. It's great.
And so that's kind of where we want to be.
So last question I want to jump into the data, Latane, with you. And that is just going back to this multi-threading. We'll end it on this, but multi-threading is so critical. And the data that we're showing is that, across the board, people are typically having 2 to 3 contacts on the buying side. On the enterprise, it'll be 4 to 6, maybe 7+. And on the selling side, we're also bringing our teams. We're bringing 2 to 3 contacts into 59% of the ops. And on the enterprise, we'll go even more contacts. So there's a lot of people coming together on these deals. And I know we see it all the time, how critical multi-threading is. If we don't win a deal, this is always the aha moment that we got this part wrong. How do you think about this? And how do you think about the overall orchestration here?
So a couple things, and we found the same thing. Again, I like to do forensics, I suppose, on stuff. But yeah, we did a similar analysis, and guess what? We lost a deal. We were single threaded. And so I think, why don't I start with in sales, and then I'll work back to what needs to happen, because it can't just be a seller's job to multi-thread. But I will say, one of the things that we do and our managers do is, because right in Sixth Sense, I told you the anatomy of a buying team. We know the anatomy of a buying team. Yeah. We give the sellers a persona map. It has red on there. It says, this is a persona who needs to be in the meet. It needs to be in deals if you want them to close, and they're red. This one's green. This one's yellow. And so a lot of times we'll just, on the forensics of a deal, we'll put up the 2 persona maps, like, which one of these do you think closed, right? Yeah. And so it's just some of it's just coaching, inspecting, and then giving them tools to it sounds like, oh, of course they're going to multi-thread, but you know how it happens. Sometimes when you get in a cycle, the person latches onto you and is doesn't want you to, what I mean?
They don't want you to multi-thread.
They don't want you to multi-thread, right? So, it's also okay, how do we make sure that we're giving them great tools? Some of it's content, some of it's the, marrying up kind of executives and evangelists to be able to help them work deals. But I would say, and, back to the BDR role and back to the marketing role, you can't expect just sellers to be multi-threading. You've got to also support that. And so for us, BDRs have to work at least 2 contacts on those 6 QAs.
Nice.
And just setting them up to multi-thread actually, because again, once someone latches onto you in a deal, it's harder and harder and harder the farther and farther along you go. Yeah. Whereas if you set the tone from the beginning, right in the first meeting, oh, I'm also talking to la-di-da and la-di-da, and it's easier to keep it going. So that's a big part of it. The other part of it is the marketing air cover. And so one of the things we did as part of Project Panic is we know that coming out of the first meeting, we actually wind up specific LinkedIn campaigns geared towards every persona that was in that meeting. speaking to their persona about Sixth Sense, because we want to help like accelerate that along. So those are just kind of, so multi-threading is not just a sales
I like what you said. I mean, it is a system, and I think the key is how do you systematize this multi-threading? How do you, whether it's a system of compete, but bringing execs together and orchestrating that in a systematic way, but it adds value. Customers get more from it. And I think even on the exec side, you want to be connected to these customers in a very meaningful and real way. I mean, that's the fun part of the work we do.
I think though, you have to know your personas and which execs are going to have a meaningful connect with them. So like, and I think that makes my job fun as the CMO of Sixth Sense selling to marketers. I think if you're the CMO selling to security folks, that's more challenging. You might not be the best person to try to go insert yourself in a deal, right? But figuring out who is going to be your evangelists within your company and how you're going to be ideally customer zero of your products and being able to educate on them. I think that's like, you need to be thoughtful about that.
I think it's right. I think it's got to be authentic. And I think that's the last key piece of bringing people together. Latane, thanks so much for joining. I wanted to put your book up here because I was having fun going through this today. No forums, no spam, no cold calls, Latane from Sixth Sense. But thanks so much. I just appreciate your energy and sharing with everybody. And I don't know, keeping it interesting while we're all at home today, thinking about
We try.
Yeah. Anyways, great, Latane, great spending time with you. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
Bye, Jim.